Today, many of you are going to be diving into Anthem for the very first time. I personally have been playing the game for over a week now via Origin Premiere. I put my review out the other day, where in short, I said there was a lot that I loved about Anthem and a lot of fun I was having with the core gameplay loop, but the game was undeniably and deeply flawed. Today I want to sit down and talk a little bit more about what it's been like to play the game for the past week, pushing into 40-hour territory, why I'm still playing it, and some of the other things that I've actually really found myself enjoying. First and foremost, I wanted to talk a little bit about the additional story mission content that you can access via the faction leaders. We're not going to get into spoiler details here, but I wanted to talk about them on a more general front. There is a side mission or a set of story missions for each of the faction leaders, including Bryn, Yarrow, and Matthias. I've had a lot of fun with these. They've been a great chance to spend more time with the characters, which, as I mentioned in my review, were one of the strong points of Anthem's story experience for me. And in general, they've taken me to some pretty cool places. The side missions actually do a really good job of helping you explore much of Bastion. The same environments you could technically find if you dug deep enough when in free play come up during a lot of these missions, and it's a great opportunity to learn about those locations so you can revisit them in free play, where they often are a feature point for open world events, as well as just great opportunities to gain access to loot as well as material farms. These have really been kind of a home run for me, and in a lot of ways I've found some of the side missions to be better than some of the content in the main story mission, specifically when it comes to pacing. They're a great opportunity to not just access more of the story, but again to have more time interacting with the characters that involve that portion of that story, particularly Matthias. Like, if I had to really call one out here, Matthias and Bryn are definitely two of my favorite characters, but Matthias is just a really fun character to watch the freelancer interact with during dialogue, not just during those initial cutscenes for these missions, but also for the banter that occurs during the course of the mission. He's just a really good character. He comes across very strong, and much like Bryn, they have these really powerful representations of their personalities that make them a lot of fun to be around, a lot of fun to be on comms with during story missions. I really do recommend that you dive into those when you have a chance to. In fact, I would much rather be doing those than just grinding out like open world stuff to get to level 30, so finishing all of those is a great way to get your XP up even further, so you can start to push into Grandmaster when you actually start playing the game today. Now, going beyond that, I've actually had a ridiculous amount of time jumping across all of the Javelins. In fact, the only Javelin I've ignored thus far has been the Storm, just because I knew it was going to be so popular. I wanted to let other people play it and spend more time with the Interceptor, the Ranger, and the Colossus. It's also been pretty impressive how easy, per se, it's been to maintain 3 Javelins on a reasonable gear score. If you get into hard and actually bounce across the 3 Javelins as you level up weapons and gain access to universal components, you can bring other Javelins into the fray relatively quickly. So you could play maybe 10 or 20 hours with just the Colossus, switch to the Ranger, kit it out with a lot of the weapons that have dropped in some of the universal components, and then go out and actually farm Ranger components, and very quickly get the Ranger up to snuff in terms of gear score with your Colossus that was already sitting at 10 to 20 hours. It's one of the great things about not having to start a new story just to play the other Javelins, and it's one of the great things about weapons and certain components being shared across the multiple Javelins. You really only have to hunt for those Javelin-specific components, which are very useful, as well as, of course, the Javelin-specific abilities. I could really see myself having all 4 of my Javelins in Masterwork and in Legendary in the next few months. And if you really like playing all of the Javelins, it definitely adds a level of replayability, diversity, and variety to the gameplay experience that Anthem is offering, which is definitely one of the weak areas of the game. So in my opinion, as you dive into the game this weekend, don't be afraid to jump from the Interceptor to the Ranger to the Colossus. It's totally doable, and in my opinion, it's a lot of fun, man. They're different. They're different enough that you have a bit of a learning curve each time you swap across one to the next. And I've actually been building loadouts across those 3 Javelins, where when I want to run a marksman rifle, I play my Interceptor. And when I want to run, like a meaty close quarters build, I go play my Colossus. And maybe if I want to focus on sniping or, you know, kind of like a pseudo support build. I'll go play my ranger. So it's not just a matter of having loadouts within the javelins for me, but having loadouts that exist across the javelins. Because from a roleplay perspective, I pretty much refuse to use a marksman rifle on my Colossus. It just seems weird. I'd rather use an LMG and a grenade launcher. Now, one of the other things that I've really been looking forward to, and that we got a small taste of this week, and that we got a bigger taste of this weekend, are their world events. You know, them doing like special timed world events. So there was an outlaw event that happened this past Wednesday, and honestly, I think it was mostly a failure. The problem I have with the outlaws and them doing a world event was that they created an uptick in outlaw spawns. So there were more outlaws for you to engage, and there was supposed to be a named outlaw that you could track down. Unfortunately, in the small amount of time I had to play on Wednesday, I wasn't able to find one. Now, I imagine that most of these are more in the realm of a test, but you've got to do a little bit more on a presentation front when these events come around. You know, there's a little banner when you boot into the game that's like, Outlaw event is happening. But it should be something with a little bit more grandeur. You know, I want to see something that appears on my map even. When I open up my map when I'm out in free play, that kind of lets me know. I want to get a bit of dialogue from Faye over the comms where she's like, oh, uptick an outlaw. There's rumors of this outlaw named yada yada. We should try and find him, you know? And there's supposed to be rewards for completing these events, but unfortunately I didn't get to eliminate that target to find out if there was. In terms of actual rewards, this is an opportunity for them to give us, you know, more player recognition focused items. The idea of each time they do an event like this, create a vinyl that the player can unlock if they hunt down all of the targets for that world event. And that's exactly what we're getting to experience this weekend, is a world event that's going to last a lot longer than one day, and that has 4 unique titans to hunt down. So there are actually ancient ash titans appearing in the world now. I've hunted one so far, the Ruin Titan, and we're supposed to get some sort of acknowledgement if we hunt them all down during the weekend. Again, I really like the idea of this. I just think it needs to be presented a little bit better. Outside of just slapping, you know, a little banner on the start of the game when you boot it up, a lot of people aren't even really going to know what the hell's happening. You know, adding some dialogue into the fray and making these more significant can go a long way in pushing towards the level of what Monster Hunter World does with their world events, which is something that I come back to the game every single time for. And that's a direction I would love to see these get pushed with Anthem. If that meant that an event maybe came once a month and was a week long, so they had time to prep it and to make it a little bit more grand, then I'd totally be on board with that. They could still do micro events that are a little less significant throughout the month, but having one larger event like that with a little bit more focus, a larger reward behind it, and a little bit of dialogue added in to, again, add that element of grandeur to it would be really fantastic. Nonetheless, I'm still excited to hunt down the Ash Titans. They are my favorite fight in the game. I think they're really enjoyable. And while I don't believe any of these 4 Titans are going to have any unique mechanics, that is also something I'd like to see them dabble in going into the future. I understand it's still early on. I'd rather see them working on bugs and getting the game in a better shape, but I still wanted to lay out some of my thoughts and opinions on what I've experienced with world events so far. If you are playing the game this weekend, I can't recommend enough that you head on out into free play and take some time to hunt down those ancient titans. They're a lot of fun to fight, and seeing if you can actually kill one before it sort of suicides is a fun little challenge within itself. Now, outside of that, I was really curious to see what it was going to feel like from a personal perspective to start thinking about making content for Anthem. Obviously, there's a lot of potential with builds to have a lot of discussion, but I found myself already really excited to work on things like new player guides and, you know, doing some of the weapon reviews like the masterwork review we did this last weekend. So I've already got a bunch of stuff on deck. I kind of just wanted to give everybody this first day to really just play the game before we started to go all crazy throwing guides at people. But I've got a Colossus guide in the work. I've got another masterwork review in the works. I've got a combo guide in the works. So expect a lot of that cool stuff over the coming days and weeks. But all in all, if you have decided to pick up Anthem, the thing that I recommend you do the most is to experiment and explore. The game's not perfect, it's got some heavy hitting flaws, but I've had my most fun when I've just been sitting back and taking it in stride and experimenting and having a good time with different builds and loadouts and not getting too obsessed over one specific thing yet. You might just find out that that Javelin that you thought you loved in the demo is actually your least favorite Javelin and you love another Javelin a lot more. Or maybe you're like me and you're just going to try and play them all because why the hell not? That's going to do it for me, though. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you had a chance to play the game over the last week and you've still been playing it, I'd love to know why you're still playing the game, what you still enjoy about it, and of course, for the rest of you, enjoy your first day with the full release of Anthem. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.